D, hearkening back to a few years ago with Sony Michel and DeAndre Swift at Georgia, saying Miami's running game should be like the 18 Georgia Bulldogs, where we've got a number of backs.
Yeah. And of course, that's going to have me go over to college football stats, cfbstats.com. I'm going to look up the carry allocations for that season really quickly. All right, so you had DeAndre Swift at 163, Elijah Holyfield at 59, Brian Herring at 159, and then Brian Herring at 50. The first two guys had 1,000 yards each. Okay, I think that Red Lashley wants to have it me a little bit more instead of 50-50-ish, maybe be 60-40, 70-30 with one guy getting the majority and then splitting up the rest. And I think that actually fits well with what guys have shown. People are talking about Cam Harris. When he's able to go 100%, because sometimes he doesn't go all 100%, it doesn't seem like. But who's able to come in and really just run like their hair's on fire? The backup. I don't need to, you're coming out of the bullpen. You know what I mean? This is why we have all these guys in the majors now throwing 100 miles an hour, because I'm out of the bullpen, I'm throwing all the gas I have. Because my tank is still full, but I'm going to use it all up in one inning, as opposed to a starter trying to stretch it out for 8 or 9. You're not going to throw 100% for 9 innings. That's just ridiculous to consider. But same thing with running backs. Hey, if you got if you're going to get 25 carries, okay, maybe I don't go super duper hard on this, one cut or this one thing, because I know I've got to set it up for later. I'm trying to get in this groove. But if you're the backup, look, you get 5-7 carries a game. I'm breakneck speed at that, those carries. Jalen Knighton, same thing. There's that video of him running the drill next to or after Cam Harris in the spring, and it just looked different. Cam Harris, okay, I'm going through Jalen Knighton, I'm doing all these cuts at 100 miles an hour. So yeah, maybe let those guys come off the bench. I still think that Donald Chaney Jr. should be the starting running back. I think he's just a differently talented kind of a guy. We'll see, obviously, how he recovers from his shoulder injury, which kept him out of the end of spring practice. So that second scrimmage in the spring game, he did not participate in, and was noted by Manny Diaz, as relayed by many of the journalists who were on that availability, that Donald Chaney Jr. should be available going towards the opener. So you're looking at a couple months recovery time. And that's, sometimes guys get dinged up and things like that. I still think his talent is of the starter. But yeah, if it were to be 50-50, like the 18 Georgia Bulldogs are close to 50-50, then you could have two guys who get close to 1,000 yards running. But regardless of the allocation of carries, I think that all three running backs, Chaney Jr., Knighton, and Harris, all bring different things to the table. I think you can scheme them all to be dynamic and challenging for the opposing defense.
D brought up the 2018 Georgia Bulldogs. What came to mind for me was not being able to differentiate necessarily the years, but the tandems was, I thought, of DeAndre Swift and Sony Michel together. But Sony Michel in 18 had already moved on to the NFL. You mentioned Elijah Holyfield and running down the carry distribution. You want to go to the previous year, it was really sick because you had Nick Chubb in the mix at 223, Sony Michel at 156, DeAndre Swift. So you had Chubb, Michel, and Swift in the same backfield. Brian Herring.
Exactly. And Holyfield and Herring. All those guys had more than 50 carries. And then you had Jake from State Farm with 55 carries, or whatever. Because unfortunately, they count carries as rushes, but whatever. But yeah, you had all those guys. So you get something like that. I don't know who would be, if you have somebody at 220 and somebody at 150, I don't know who the 80 back would be in terms of carries. Probably Knighton because of his size. But yeah, I don't know. But there's talent. And then, hey, we haven't even talked about Thaddeus Franklin and Cody Brown, two true freshmen who are both 6 feet tall and more than 220 pounds. I think that Franklin was at 228 and Brown was at 231 coming into this backfield as well. So you got other power backs coming in, to take up some carries maybe. And I don't know exactly what they're going to do with eligibility, whether there's going to be, I don't know. We're going to see how roster management works out going forward. But there's 3 guys that we know in that backfield, and there's another 2 guys who are coming who are damn good themselves. So, yeah, but that I'll go, the knee bone is connected to the backbone. So, hey, the running game can be good if the offensive line continues to take a step forward. Our quarterback play continues to be to the level that we've seen and things like that. So, the wide receivers catch passes and things, which we did see some in the spring game. We also saw some drops from the usual suspects, and things like that. So, it all kind of goes together, and, we'll see. But, yeah, I think that Lashley wants one guy to take 65, 70% of the carries because he said that that's what he wants, and then go from there.
So that's nursing the distribution of carries and the utilization of the backs. Then there's nursing injuries. And so with Donald Chaney being in the condition that he is, how much do you think that's going to affect, based on the diagnosis, he should be back before the season, but have enough leeway and lead time to get himself sharp and ready to go?
Yeah, and we'll see. Obviously, going up against a team that's as physical as Alabama, they're just massive guys. A shoulder injury like that's going to be around. You're going to get tackled in the upper body area. So and that's something to watch for. Just against, you're going up against some of the most dynamic and large athletes that you're going to face this season. So there's that. And Chaney might not start at the beginning of the year, but Miami is good for changing the starting lineup and taking somebody who was not starting at the beginning and eventually starting them. Hello, Gregory Rousseau. You know what I mean? When everybody was just like, this guy needs to start. And, I'm not even going to say the name of the player who was in front of him because I like that player. I interviewed that player a couple of times. He's since left for the Mountain West time zone, that conference. You know what I'm talking about. It was not his fault, Colorado State. It was not his fault that the coaches started him in front of Russo, but everybody was screaming at the player. And honestly, was doing a fine job. He's doing okay. But you got this superstar over here on the bench who comes in and he has a sack in the third play, and then another pressure on play 4 and another batted pass because he's in the backfield on play 5. It's pretty clear to see. So, even if Donald Chaney Jr., again, who I believe is just a different kind of running back than the other two and should be starting, even if he does not start at the beginning of the year, I do believe that there's a space for him to climb up that depth chart through the course of the season.
If I'm thinking of the right player on a late Saturday night in the fall, if you're watching one of those late Mountain West games, you could find him on ESPN. Correct? Is that the guy? SP.
Yes. All
right.
That was even over. Yes.
I threw that in there.
SPN. Yes. No, you are correct. You are. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Nicely done.
Shane. Man, we're getting all sorts of requests for just people wanting to see you and other media guests that we have on here. Just mix it up. So this is a different request of a big conglomeration of Miami talk prior to the Alabama game. Yes, we'll try to throw something together, Shane. I don't know if we would have time for all those people to even take a breath and say anything. That's a little heavy on the invitation list.
That's like, I'm playing Outriders on my PS4 right now as I wait to get a PS5. But that's a cross-play crew right there. You want from different platforms. You want from different organizations and outlets. Like that's a lot. That's a lot. It would be fun. I don't know. How just like Inside Baseball. I don't know exactly how we could structure it so everybody would have a chance to speak. Or just even interact with that many people. But it could be interesting. But this is why, I appreciate you guys watching and reading State of the U and everything like that. But we're not the only outlet out there. And I urge you to follow some of these others, listen to, watch, read their things as well. Because, I love what I do. And I'm very confident in the content that I create and everything out there. But I'm not the only one. So, hey, go check some of these other guys out. If we're not able to bring every single content creator under the sun together in one stream, you can still support them because we should be able to support everybody and not have, beefs like I've seen on my Twitter mentions, which is crazy. But